Welcome to Behind the Build, an in-depth podcast interviewing the design industry in residential construction. To better understand how they run their practice, what inspires them, and really who they are. I'm starting off today's episode, our first episode, with interviewing Joel Tanner, the principal and founder of SMPL Design Studio based in Hamilton. Joel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me here today, Jonathan.
Joel, you and I have known each other for a couple of years now, but the viewers don't know you. So I'd like for you to be able to tell them a little bit about how you got your practice started, from school and your first inspiration preschool that led you there. If you can just indulge us a little bit in your history in architecture.
Thanks again, Jonathan. It's been more than a couple of years, but I know that we're just tight and that's just how things are. But yeah, going back to 2010, we did start the practice. We being myself at the time, it was a team of one, and that lasted for several years. We are now here just about 14 years later, and we're a team of 21 individuals. Our primary focus is in residential construction, new homes, cottages, large-scale renovation additions, with projects ranging from $750,000 up to $8 or $10 million. The nice thing about being a design firm is we are able to bounce around, whether it be the province, our beautiful country, or overseas for our work. I know that somebody like yourself, being in the construction industry, you're very focused to the core of Toronto. We have the ability of flexing our muscles in other areas, which I think keeps us on our toes and keeps us excited coming to work every day.
Joel, I want to ask you about the early inception of design in your life. What did that look like? You were a young boy, you were 5 years old, you got your hands on some crayons. How did you get your start in understanding and deciding that you wanted to go into architecture and designing it?
So I'm super lucky. When I was, 10, 11, 12, 13, ever since that age, I've always wanted to be a quote-unquote architect. I am not formally an architect. I'm an architectural technologist. I'm an insanely passionate designer. Our firm focuses on modern home design. And so the nice thing is that going back 25 years and knowing that you wanted to fulfill that passion makes getting to the finish line that much easier. There's a lot of people out there that still don't know what they want to do at my age, at 38 years old. And the guiding force there was my mom, and saying, listen, if you want to do this, you have to focus on A, B, C, and D in order to get into that program. I also knew at a young age that I struggled with physics, and getting into university was going to be a bit difficult. I did go the college route, and it really led me down this amazing path. Loved Algonquin College, everything it had to offer. I actually still work with one of my profs to this day. Coming up, 15, 20 years ago, we're really good friends. And so what drove me from that idea of getting into the industry, going to college, finding a job, is really what led me to where I am today. And it was totally out of pure and utter luck. I was working for a company and was insanely lucky to be able to design a custom line of homes. That custom line of homes went live on the internet. We sold 2 homes in 72 hours. One we shipped out to Vancouver Island. The other one was a little bit more local. After that 72 hours, the business owner came to me and said, hey, Joel, listen, take those houses off the website. Our specialty is not modern homes. We specialize in round prefab homes. Take them off the market. I said, but Lars, listen, we sold 2 homes in 72 hours. That's a huge amount of revenue for the firm. And it didn't matter to him. He wanted to follow that passion of round home panelized construction. So in that, we actually had a client, that third client, at our fingertips when Lars, cut us out at our kneecaps and said, no, we're not moving forward on this. That specific individual actually became my first client. So he hunted me down in Nelson, British Columbia. I didn't have a cell phone at the time. He came and knocked on my door, and he offered to pay for custom home design services for his new home. He was very keen on having me do that for him. And that's really what launched SMPL to what it is today. So I went into work the next day. I put in my resignation. I was taking a 2-month hiatus, sabbatical, whatever we want to call it. And I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to take some time and I'm going to kind of resituate myself and my path in life. And I never went back to that company. 2 months in, I called them and I said, I'm good. Have a great day, but I'm just going to continue on this path. We are now a firm of 21 people. We do anywhere from 30 to 60 homes a year, depending on scale and complexity. And, we exude passion in everything that we do when it comes to home design, customer service, and elevating a project to the next level.
You touched on a few topics there that I want to bring up and I want to go into a little deeper. And that is, you were born here in Ontario, but you went out to BC. So when your practice started, did you start the practice, as you say, out in BC? And if so, when you were there, how many projects did you eventually acquire out in BC before you made the play to come back to Ontario?
Yeah, so something you don't know about me is I was actually born in Quebec. So I spent 5 years there before moving to Ontario. And then I spent most of my early childhood from when I was 5 until I was 17, growing up in suburbia of Oakville, before going off to college in Ottawa. Spent 3 years in Ottawa. Always, for my entire life, I'm a passionate snowboarder, wanted to live in BC, wanted to enjoy the powder. Right after college was done, packed up a car that I just bought, Subaru Impreza, flew across the country with my now wife, and fulfilled that passion and that desire to live in beautiful BC. So I did start the company out there back in 2010. We were there from 2006 to 2012. What actually brought us back to Ontario is my wife's dad actually had a heart attack. He's still around today, luckily. And but that was that trigger and that mechanism to say, you know what, Joel, like, we got to go back to Ontario. Our family's all there. And I said, yep, absolutely, no problem. Sell our house. And off we went in 2012 from BC back to Ontario to start our life in Ontario, bringing the brand with me on that adventure. We were very small. It was myself and I had a part-time drafter when we were based out in Nelson, British Columbia. We were doing anywhere from, let's say, 12 to 20 projects a year, renovations, renovation additions, new homes, chalets, etc. And then bringing the company back to Ontario, it was basically hitting the reset. I knew nobody. I didn't know process for permitting. And it was just starting the company from scratch again.
And so does that mean that the individual that was working with you out there as a drafter ended up staying out there and that was the end of that relationship, or did that person make the trip with you?
So that first team member, Julia, did stay out there and actually transitioned from working with Simple Design Studio part-time to actually working with my project engineer out there full-time, and is actually still with that company. So came back solo to Ontario with the brand.
Okay, and so you come back, you establish some level of roots here, knowing that at least you've got the tie to some family, but now you've got to go ahead and build your business. I'm just thinking about the daunting task of what that looks like. This is what, in your late 20s?
Yeah, this would have been 28 home shows. Hamilton Home Show, Toronto Home Show, Oakville Home Show, spring and fall. It was horrendous. It's a terrible thing to be involved in. I did not enjoy it. My father helped me out on that 11-day push for the Toronto Spring Home Show. But I don't know if I can do another home show ever again. I did that for 3 years straight, 4 shows a year. It was that combined with pounding the pavement, meeting builders, introducing myself, and getting that exposure to these small little tidbit projects, to make ends meet.
That's interesting. Okay, so you come back, you're 20 years old, you do home shows like it's your job, and from there you are able to acquire projects. The projects start to become far more interesting. You're doing some small renovations. When was your first new build out on your own? What year was that in? Do you remember?
Ooh, that's a darn good question. We definitely dabbled more in the reno market for about 2 years. So that would have been 2012 calendar year, 2013 calendar year. One of our first new builds would have been in 2014. Actually, a really good friend of mine who's also a builder, he's based out of Oakville, Geometric Consulting, and he actually built that project. So that was our first new build in what I'm going to consider to be like, the core of Oakville. It was a super important new build for us. So I think we dabbled in smaller cottages in Ontario besides the renovations, but that was really the launch to getting into the new custom home market in Oakville.
Okay, and drawing upon inspiration from people in your life, were there any out there, and I say any architects, both either dead or alive, that you felt helped give you a sense of motivation and drive to following your passion into modern home design? And if so, who are those people?
Yeah, again, going back to high school, being in drafting class with, what was my prof's name? Mr. Morgan. Mr. Morgan, he was amazing, and he knew I was a bit of a troublemaker at the time, but he was there to really guide and assist me in the woodworking class and in video editing class, and then also in architectural design class. And so I was actually Frank Lloyd Wright was like that was I just like ate, slept, and breathed his work. He's a super interesting character, insanely talented, has done so many unique projects all over North America. I think that was the first real launch of inspiration. And then I think from there, building out to, somebody like Mies van der Rohe, who I look up to, to this day. And then I guess kind of more recently, we're a passion design firm. We are not architects. We're not registered with the OAA. We apply for building permits with a BCIN stamp, which is our building code identification number. It's the alternative path to applying for building permits that was launched in Ontario back in 2006. So we are a design firm at heart. But I very much look up to a lot of talented architects in the area, whether it be Brenda Eisen or super cool. Altius has done some fantastic projects up north over the years. And so, yeah, there are some more local architects that I look up to as an individual. But I think more of my passion and more of my inspiration right now is drawn out of architects in Asia, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, all parts of Europe. I think we want to push the envelope on our product. We don't copy paste. I don't want to design 2-story boxes in the middle of Toronto. We want to open up and break that mold and create something that's very tailored for our client. And I think by drawing from inspiration all over the world is what helps us down our path every single day.
Okay, so touching on that, the every single day, what does the every single day look like to you? Because I know most people in the world, they wake up and they have a job that runs from 9 to 5. What I also know that is not you. So I'm curious, can you indulge us in what a typical day looks like for you, Mr. Tanner?
Well, we're coming up on 6:45 at night, and we're headed out for dinner with a really good client of ours tonight, but I've been up far too long. My day today started at 3 because I couldn't sleep because I had something on my brain from a company perspective.
Is that 3 a.m. or p.m.?
Well, that's 3 a.m. But my regular day, I'm typically getting up around 4:30 or 5 at the office for between 5 and 5:30. The sweet spot for me as a business owner is that quiet time from about 5:30 to 8 in the morning before we do our morning huddle. So every single day in the office, we have an 8 a.m. morning huddle. We go through all the key tasks that everybody's focusing on for the day, talk about priorities, and really from 8:30, 9 o'clock on, it's meetings, phone calls, more meetings, driving all over Ontario, reviewing plans, and usually wrapping up anywhere between 4:30, 5 o'clock at night. So again, it's intense.
You say that you have that quiet time between 5:30 and call it 8 before the huddle. So what I'm curious also to know is, has the routine that you have created for yourself become a mandatory company culture where people have to show up before 8 o'clock in the morning? What's that looking like inside your firm?
So our company culture has really evolved, I think, quite drastically, even over the last 5 years with COVID. And we've gone from 10 team members to 20 team members in the last 5 years. But by no means do I enforce that or instill that on our team members. And I don't expect that from our team members. Having said that, Our director of operations is usually in at about 6:30 in the morning, 7 in the morning. One or two of our designers is in a little bit earlier as well, but our hours are varied. Some people roll in at 6:30, 7:30. The intent, you have to be at the 8 a.m. morning huddle. Beyond that, we do have flexibility. People have lives, people have children, people have appointments. And so, work-life balance for me, some days is non-existent. That being said, my kids are now 10 and almost 8. And about 5 years ago, I said, I am not working weekends anymore. It's just not happening. That is family time, because by honestly 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, I'm pretty beat and ready to kind of tap out for the week. So weekends are my time. They're my family's time. I usually only work one evening a week, and then that way there's 4 evenings dedicated to family time. So it's a balance, but that balance is so critical to my sanity. And so I'm not here to instill that on the rest of the team. If that team member is passionate to come in early or to work late, that's fantastic. We love it. That we want them to be connected to the projects, but we don't want to force that culture of, being in working 50 or 60 hours a week. That's just not on our plate as a company model.
All right. So, and now I'm actually curious to understand company, I think, more as a whole from your standpoint, because what I think a lot of people don't really understand is that an architecture practice or design practice is rooted in just that, and that is design. But where a lot of people, I feel, struggle in this industry from the design perspective is understanding how to run the actual business. Because ultimately, once you become successful at this, you end up having a staff and you end up having their families and a lot of responsibilities of people, their pay, their expectations and their life goals, their ambitions for their own professional development. So what does it look like from your standpoint on a continued effort evolving your business with the evolution of the workplace? It's kind of a robust question. I apologize.
That one's got me spinning.
Yeah. So the question was, there's an evolution of the workspace. So what does it look like from you, having the majority of people that go to school for architecture or design don't get the actual business side of things? What are you doing to maintain forward thinking mindset?
It comes down to the team, and we have an amazing leadership team. We have an amazing director of operations, office manager, creative director in the interior design department, drafters, designers. That team is critical to the success of the company. Hands down, it's insanely important. I'm here to drive that bus as the business owner, but I couldn't do what we do every single day without that team hopping on the bus. Running a business is a constant evolution and a constant learning process. And I absolutely cannot stand here today and say that I've mastered it. I think that we're always trying to push the envelope on our architectural projects and the design intent and the uniqueness and the flavor of the individuality of each and every one of our homes. In doing that, we're constantly reinventing the wheel. That is not easy. It pushes the designers, it pushes the drafters, it pushes the technical staff members, it pushes the permit process. We don't copy paste. Nothing that we do is copy paste. There's really zero efficiency in our process. But we do have processes, and those are driven from our director of operations. And so it's a pretty heavy burden to have, that amount of team members looking at you to drive that bus. There's also external factors as well of you have competition in the marketplace when it comes to pricing. You have competition when it comes to uniqueness of projects. You have budget constraints to manage with clients. You have municipalities not necessarily delivering on their schedule all the time. There's so many variables to allow us to be successful that we need to hone in on every single day. So it is a pretty heavy thing. It's not anything you can teach somebody about how hard it's going to be, but I care about each and every one of the team members that are a part of the firm, and I care about their families, and they're here to do a job, but it comes down to there's more to life than just work. And we realize that, our leadership team realizes that, and we try to instill that as much as possible on our team, and especially on our younger staff.
All right, so here's a question outside of the team, more so for you as an individual, as the owner of the company, and you're sole owner of the company. That's correct, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so with you being sole owner of the company, a lot of the drive, as you've already mentioned, comes from you and some of the leadership team. What I'm curious to know is, do you do any personal development on your own professional side of things? What do I mean by that? So let me explain that a little bit better than the way I just have. Are you doing any certification courses in business? Are you looking at going to any workshops or conferences to be able to help better improve your ability at running the company? Or is that something that you just don't have the time for and you aren't really required to do it, and as a result, it kind of just, you leave that alone and you just focus on the design, focus on continuing to develop the existing conditions of what you have, improving them, but maybe without that?
So we're always pushing our team members from a professional development standpoint. So we have PA days. So each team member gets one paid PA day per year, and they can do so as they wish. So whether it be going and touring homes, whether it be an educational seminar on CLT panels or renewable energy. So that's something we introduced a couple of years ago, and it's been pretty effective in getting team members out of the office and learning something new and exciting. 5 years ago, Operative Word, myself and our Director of Operations, Lindsay Bruce, we did a pretty intensive 6-month training program with an architectural business coach based out of California. That, man, oh man, helped us get leaps and bounds. It was a big chunk of change to bite into 5 years ago, but what did it do? It allowed us to survive the start of the pandemic. And so when the pandemic kicked in and we had to send everybody home, in 24 hours, we spun our business. We had people working from home. We had introduced digital communication strategies. That's when we introduced the online daily huddle at 8 a.m. to get everybody on the same page. And so that was a massive business development process that we went through 5 years ago, which has been amazing and still to this day remains super effective in a lot of things that we do. I've been quite negligent in the last 24 months in my own personal, or I should say my own personal professional development, because how busy we've been with COVID. There hasn't been time to breathe. I am trying to veer and focus more time and attention on that. And so it is something that I, as the owner, am starting to focus more time and energy on. Yeah, but I am definitely not the gold star when it comes to leading the charge on that element.
I don't think you need to beat yourself up too much. I think you're running a business, and sometimes professional development is a little bit more of a challenge to be able to squeeze into your days, especially when they start at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or whatever you said. What did you say? You said you were at the office between 5 and 5:30. So I don't think many people out there are actually showing up to work that early or focused on driving it as hard as what you have based on everything that you've said. I am curious also to know, and as I think others are too. So you said earlier that you work on anywhere between 30 to 60 projects in a given year. So my curiosity in that is, of that number, how many of them, and I know that you're not going to know the statistics on this, so I'm not expecting you to, but how many of them do you believe to be local now, and how many abroad now? When I say abroad, I mean outside of Ontario, versus where you were 5 years ago?
Yeah, 5 years ago, 100% of our work was in Ontario. I think that number has probably jumped down to 70%, let's say. We're doing work in the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, Florida, Washington State, Texas, Nova Scotia, British Columbia, Alberta. We've done work in the Northwest Territories. We'd love to do work overseas. We've yet to do work overseas, but that's one of our five-year goals, is to get overseas with some work. And that circles back to where I started the conversation a bit ago, right? Is that because we're designers, we're insanely lucky that we can fly out to a site. We can visit it, we can get our eyes on it, we can walk it, we can understand the topography, the light infiltration, the client's wish list, and we can leave that site and not go back until construction commences. And we don't have to be there every week like the builder has to be there. And the more we get our foot on the ground in a community, the easier it is to get that second job. It's happening right now in Nova Scotia. It just happened in Washington. It just happened in the Bahamas. And so the more we start to push our boundaries, the more it opens up that world and that oyster a little bit more for us to work in new communities. And we're all about pushing the envelope in our design, and also in those areas where we're looking to focus more energy from a work perspective.
Okay, so understanding now that you have a practice of 20 plus people, the practice has been around now for 14 years. You're focused on professional development, both with yourself and with your staff. There's a precedent for people showing up early and working late, but there's also the balance. I'm curious to know for yourself, like, what do you do to be able to take your mind off of work? I know you said before that your weekends are your weekends and you only work one evening a week now, or at least that's what you're trying to aim for. What do you do for fun? Like, what do you get out there and enjoy in the world?
I've been a huge snowboarder forever, and I'm lucky enough that my kids love snowboarding. My wife's a skier, and so that is just our life. December, January, February, March, every single weekend, that's our passion. And that's where I really, really disconnect and just enjoy downtime. The rest of the year, it's a little bit different. We've got a little cabin on Lake Erie, and so we disconnect on the weekends. It's a bit of a different atmosphere and a bit of a different relaxation. And but I think my passion is in snowboarding. I'm a huge car enthusiast, so I love my daily driver, and I love enjoying it. So going for a nice country drive, especially in the fall, it's one of my favorite times of the year. Just enjoying the colors, especially in the Dundas area, Waterdown, the Niagara Escarpment, and then just enjoying time with the kids. They're not hugely into sports, so whether it be going for a walk with the dog, going to the park, just super simple things in life. Those kids bring my wife and I so much joy, and they're a total handful every single day, but they're also a joy every single day. So I think they bring a lot of stability and sanity to my crazy schedule.
And so you mentioned home life, you mentioned the family. I'm curious to understand, you live in a house. Is it a house that you bought, or is it a house that you built?
I was lucky enough to build our existing home 2.5 years ago, so we do live in a simple home.
And when you say simple, you mean that the design of this house is simple, or this is an SMPL simple house designed?
I should have designed it to be a little bit simpler, but it is an SMPL home.
Okay, so I guess to follow that one up, is this the first home that you have built ground up, or have you had other projects with your own homes prior to this?
So this is our first personal home that we've lived in from the ground up. We've done 5 other renovation addition projects to 5 different houses previously, and we also built a home out west in beautiful British Columbia, which was a flip house. So we never did live in it or enjoy it. So real estate and architecture has been a real part of kind of the side hustle for me from a financial perspective since the inception of the company. It was a way to make a few bucks and make ends meet, being able to flip houses while trying to build the business up a little bit as well.
That's interesting. I mean, I'd have to say that the existing house I'm in right now is also an SMPL house as a renovation. A small little side note in our overall interview, but I figured I would give you the kudos for that one because it was designed by you and your firm. I wanted to know about, you have 20 plus people, 30 to 60 projects. You've done your own projects. I want to know the magnitude of projects that you have done over this time without naming address, without naming who the clients are, without any of that. I'm curious, are any of your favorite projects local, and do you get to see them often? Because I feel like when you get to look at your own designed art, there's some level of, I don't know what the word to use. I'm going to use this word because I just grew up with it. Chutzpah. You feel really good looking at something that you helped design. So my question is there are there projects that are local that are among your favorite, or do you feel that some of your favorite stuff is abroad and you have to travel to go see them?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. We actually had a client hire us back in 2019, and still friends with them to this day. They're fantastic people. We were hired on with the intent of providing architectural design services, interior design services, landscape design services, and we even picked all of the furniture in the home. And so that is a very unique project in that we put together a design concept. The client approved it without any changes. They leaned on us for every single decision for the entirety of the home, which to this day still hasn't happened again. So it's the one and only time it's ever happened in 14 years where a client just said, carte blanche, build us a house. And they do call it, the Joel house, so to speak, in terms of just the involvement that our firm had and the passion that exuded out of it. And luckily enough, it's 3 minutes around the corner from my personal home, so I do drive by it intentionally all the time. It's a fun house, and it's nice to wave hi to them. And then, I would say, but we also have some super unique projects scattered all over the beautiful province of Ontario, British Columbia, and some of them we just got to fly to enjoy. So it's a bit of a mix.
Okay, so we've kind of touched on all of the things related to SMPL from inception to current. What we haven't talked about is future. So we're at this interesting stage of the practice, right? You've become successful enough that I feel like you can now pick and choose the projects that you want to work on. So and I know that you're a goal-oriented person, so what does the next 5 years look? Well, let's actually scale that back. Forget 5. What does the next 2 years look like at SMPL? And then we'll follow it up with the next question, which is, what does the next 5 years look like at SMPL?
You know how long I've been thinking about the answer to that question? I have never, ever had a business plan. The company started at my 36-inch by 36-inch dining room table 14 years ago, where I had a piece of paper and I wrote a bunch of words on that piece of paper of what was important to me in architecture. And where I landed out of all those words was sustainable, modern, practical, livable, SMPL. That's where the brand launched. Beyond that, zero business plan, zero financial awareness of how to run a company. So I'm a terrible source when it comes to educating businesses from the ground up. And there was a lot of trial and errors that cost the firm a lot of money. And, sometimes you got to learn the hard way. So funny thing is I've actually been working on our 5-year plan for the last few months with the intent of being done by Christmas of 2023. I really, truly hope that I get there. It is a huge focus of mine right now. The shorter 1-year plan, 2-year plan for the company. We don't have massive plans to grow. We want to continue to better our service and our communications with our existing clients and with our existing builders. I think we realize where our weak points are within that part of the process. So we're looking to improve on that. We will continue to push the envelope on gnarly architecture, on gnarly design. That's what we're here to do every single day. And if we grow organically, fantastic. If we stay at this number, fantastic. We're super stoked about the team we have today. And, we have some amazing projects that are on the books that we're just jumping into design on right now. We also have a plethora of amazing homes that are wrapping up anywhere from the next 2, 3, 4, 6, 12 months out that we're insanely excited about. We'd love for some of those projects to get published and hopefully open the door to some additional opportunities outside of Ontario. And so right now our focus in the short term is sustaining our current business model and financial model and becoming better at what we do in the office every single day for our clients and for our builders and for our service providers.
It's a nice, robust answer. Okay. So I think I'm going to want to close it up with a few different questions. Okay. So number 1, what is your favorite color?
It's got to be orange.
Your lucky number.
I have no idea why. Just 6 has been in my head forever. So that's my lucky number, and I have no idea what it means to me.
Okay. Your favorite movie?
Has to be National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It's the greatest Christmas flick of all time. Growing up, the whole family would sit down and watch it on several occasions. Man, oh man, just a hilarious movie.
Surprised you didn't go with Die Hard. Okay. Favorite automobile maker, given the fact that you said you're an enthusiast?
Yeah, you can blame that on my dad. It's Porsche. He never bought one and sadly passed away 5 years ago. And ever since then, I'm I'm going to own a Porsche. I set it as a goal, and I bought one back in 2022. And I love the thing, even though it's in the shop right now getting fixed because I had a bit of a fender bender.
I didn't think we would go there. Okay, last few questions. And this is actually this goes to your sustainable. Over the last number of years, things like passive house have come across. Things and building science have really developed. And North American home building has really changed based on what's happening over in Europe. So while I joke about finding out your favorite number and your favorite color, and we'd find out about your favorite movie and automotive manufacturer, do you look at implementing anything that relates to sustainable architecture into your builds and into your design? Or are you planning to do more of that in the future? Curious to just kind of see where you find your practice going based on the move the government and what they're looking to regulate going forward.
So it's our job as design professionals to educate our clients and let them know what things are going to cost from a full construction perspective, but then also what things like renewable energy and sustainability mean in the project as a whole. My personal home, I built it. We moved in two and a half years ago. I've got a full vegetative green roof with 2,600 square foot green roof. I've got a 7.5 kilowatt solar array. The building is super insulated, insanely energy tight. I did a lot of the peel and stick membrane around the windows myself because I'm crazy about waterproof penetration and all those fun deals when it comes to construction methodologies. So what I find as a design professional is you have to not only educate the client, but you have to show them. And I think by building that house and moving in and educating our clients, getting onto the news and having a news segment with CHCH and exposing these ideas that we introduced into a modern dwelling and have it not look odd, that actually drove a lot of our clients. I can't tell you how many green roofs I've specified over the last 24 months with our design team since putting that onto my personal home. Same with solar arrays. And so it really is our job to bring these things to the forefront. Now, unfortunately, some clients are more focused on the type of marble and the substantiality of the staircase being a focal feature in the home than they are about a green roof, solar, geothermal, etc. That being said, probably 50% of our clients now were having those conversations and they're biting into it and they're investing. And that's what it comes down to. It's a long-term play. It's a long-term investment. We spent about $85,000 in the additional componentry within our $1 million home budget to put those elements into the home. But it was very important as a designer and as a lover of our planet and where we reside to do that on our personal residence and also to use it as an education tool. So that's on us as design professionals to continue to push the envelope with these new products and technologies and get more clients to introduce it on their project.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you should say that because above us right now is a green roof inside of my office. Joel, it's really been a pleasure having you on the podcast. As our first guest, we were able to understand a lot about how your business runs, about you as a person, you as a personable person, the ambitions that you have for your practice, the way that you see architecture and design. I really have learned a lot from having you on the show. I appreciate you being here as a friend, but also as a colleague in the industry, educating others that are looking to get into this. Again, just really, really appreciative of you coming and taking the time to have this little interview, a little jaunt with me.
I was pretty pumped because we had a meeting the other day. I had a meeting with my director of operations, and we talked about our 2023 strategic plan rolling into 2024. And one of the items on the list was, getting onto a podcast. Insanely flattered that you wanted me to be your first. I still don't understand why, but I'm insanely flattered, and I appreciate all the fantastic questions today, and I hope the audience enjoyed some of the entertainment as well.
Thank you. Well, that's because I have bad judgment. Pleasure, man. Thanks for coming on.